Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Brittany McGlone? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Brittany Danielle McGlone was born on November 9, 1987, in Alamogordo, New Mexico. At some point, her family moved to Winsboro, Texas. This is a small town about 2 hours east of Dallas. Her father, Ron, and her mother, Patricia, would eventually get divorced. Brittany lived with her mother in Winsboro. In 2006, Brittany graduated from high school. She intended on waiting a year before starting college. She wanted to attend nursing school in the fall of 2007. Brittany worked at a five-and-dime store in Winsboro called Alco. She also worked overnight at a Lowe's distribution center in Mount Vernon, Texas, about 20 minutes north of Winsboro. Her manager at Lowe's introduced Brittany to her son, a man named Jeff Stogner. Brittany and Jeff became romantically involved in November 2006. About 6 months later, they broke up after Brittany had sex with a man named Justin. A few weeks after this, Brittany and Jeff reunited. Before moving to the timeline of the crime, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, Stamps.com. The holiday rush means more mailing and shipping for your business, but it doesn't have to mean more stress. Stamps.com has been helping businesses like yours save time and money for 25 years, and it can help you get ready for the holiday ramp-up. All you need is premium rates from Stamps.com for all your postage needs. If you need a package pickup, you can easily schedule it through your Stamps.com dashboard. And if you sell products online, Stamps.com seamlessly connects with every major marketplace and shopping cart. Simply use your computer to print official U.S. postage 24/7 for any letter, any package, any class of mail, anywhere you want to send. Once your mail is ready, just schedule a pickup or drop it off. It's that simple. Get your business ready for the holiday rush. Get started with Stamps.com today. Sign up at Stamps.com/DrGrande for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com/DrGrande. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On May 3, 2007, Brittany informed her mother, Patricia, that she was going to drive directly to Jeff's house after working the overnight shift. Typically, Brittany would come home after working overnight and take a nap, then go to Jeff's house in the afternoon. This was the first time Brittany planned on going directly from work to Jeff's house. On the morning of May 4, 2007, Jeff and his family members had left the family house and driven to Dallas. When they returned, they found Brittany dead in Jeff's bedroom. This was at about 3:43 p.m. Jeff's mother called 911 and said her son's girlfriend was dead in the bed. The police responded to the Stogner family house. Here's what they found during their investigation. Brittany had been the victim of homicide. Her cause of death was blunt force trauma. She had been beaten with an unknown object. Brittany was murdered sometime between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. She was face up and her head was on the pillow. Brittany was not wearing any clothing. Next to the bed, her clothing was piled on top of her boots, but the police did not find her underwear. Investigators initially thought that a crime related to sex occurred, but that was not the case. Based on the condition of the bathroom, it looked like someone had recently taken a shower. Nothing was missing from the house, and there was no forced entry. The police interviewed Jeff. He said that he had asked Brittany to come straight over to his house after working overnight so they could spend some time together before he went to pick up his grandmother from the airport in Dallas. Brittany arrived at Jeff's house at about 5 a.m. He was sleeping on the couch. Brittany woke him up and they went to sleep in his bed. She was wearing a t-shirt and underwear. Jeff woke up at 7:30 a.m. and walked outside his house where his stepfather was checking the oil in a vehicle, presumably the vehicle that they were going to use to drive to Dallas. As Jeff was standing there with his stepfather, the boyfriend of his sister, Velva, showed up to pick up a check. The boyfriend's name was Chad Earl Carr. Jeff and his stepfather revealed to Chad that Brittany was asleep in the house, and they talked about their plans to drive to the airport. Chad left the Stogner family house. Jeff and his stepfather left not long after this. When they returned, they found Brittany dead. In addition to Chad, Jeff mentioned someone else who he thought could have been relevant to the case. He said that he purchased marijuana from a man named Cody. Jeff would leave money under a garden gnome outside the house. Cody would take the money and put marijuana in its place. When Jeff arrived home from the airport, he looked under the gnome. The money was gone, but there was no marijuana. Based on the evidence, investigators felt comfortable excluding a few people as potential suspects. Jeff's alibi was supported by his family members. Cody, the man who was supposed to deliver the marijuana, said he never went to Jeff's house that day. Justin, the man who had sex with Brittany 3 weeks before her murder, said that his activity with Brittany was a one-time event. There were no hard feelings. The police were able to confirm Justin's alibi. He was at work all day. This put the investigators on track to focus on Chad Earl Carr. Again, Chad was the boyfriend of Jeff's sister Velva, and he was at Jeff's house on the day of the murder. The police spoke to Chad. Here is the alibi that he supplied. On May 4, 2007, he was at his aunt's house. Chad dropped Velva off at high school before going to a construction job. He then stopped by Jeff's house between 8 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. At this point, Brittany was alive and asleep in the house. This part of Chad's alibi was corroborated by Jeff and his stepfather. After leaving Jeff's house, Chad went to an Alco store. He was captured there on video at 9:20 a.m. After this, Jeff said that he went to an optometrist for a 10 a.m. appointment. He claimed that he arrived there 20 minutes early. After this, Chad picked up Velva from high school. She confirmed this part of his alibi. The weakness in Chad's alibi was the optometrist appointment. The police talked to the employees there. They said that Chad called and said he was having vehicle trouble. He did not arrive until 10:20 a.m. Again, Chad said that he was there by 9:40 a.m. This means that there was a 1-hour gap in Chad's alibi, from 9:20 a.m. to 10:20 a.m. This is not a lot of time, but Jeff's house was only about 6 minutes away from the Alco store and 5 minutes away from the optometrist. In theory, Chad could have left the Alco store and driven to Jeff's house, beat Brittany to death quickly, showered quickly, and made it to the optometrist by 10:20 a.m. This is cutting it close, but it was technically possible. On May 21, 2007, the police searched Chad's residence. They found a gray ski mask, a t-shirt, and a pair of shorts that appeared to have blood on them, and 2 pairs of women's underwear. One pair was size 7 and belonged to his girlfriend. The other pair was size 5. Chad did not offer any explanation about this pair of underwear. Size 5 is the same size that Brittany McGlone wore. The police did not find Brittany's underwear at the crime scene. This makes it look like Chad took the underwear. In January of 2008, the police spoke to Jeff's sister, Velva. By this point, she was no longer in a romantic relationship with Chad. Velva told the police that when Chad picked her up from the high school on May 4, 2007, he was nervous. She claimed that he smelled like soap. She asked him if he took a shower. He said yes. She asked him if he took a shower at her house. He didn't say anything. The DNA test results from the crime scene indicated that all the DNA found could be accounted for by family members or Brittany. Chad's DNA was not at the crime scene. The underwear seized from Chad's residence did not contain any DNA. The police believed that Chad was guilty, but they did not have enough evidence to push the case forward. Nothing happened with the investigation for many years. In 2021, a new sheriff took over. He believed that the case against Chad was strong. Chad was arrested on September 1, 2022, and charged with capital murder. On November 30, 2022, the grand jury decided not to indict Chad Carr. Chad was released from jail the same day. At the time I am making this video, Brittany's murder is unsolved. Now moving to my analysis. The state clearly believes that Chad Earl Carr was responsible for Brittany's death, even though he was not indicted. Other people have said that there is simply not enough evidence to consider Chad guilty. Just about anyone could have killed Brittany. There is no way to know who is responsible. This brings me to the question, was Chad guilty of murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that Chad was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Chad had a history of violence. In 2001, he was arrested for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. He spent time in prison after being convicted. In 2012, he was convicted in connection with an assault of a sexual nature and spent several years in prison. It is reasonable to believe that the killer knew that Brittany was inside the house. Nothing was stolen from the house. This wasn't a burglary gone bad. Whoever entered the house did so with the intent of killing Brittany, and they had some way of entering the house without breaking in. This narrows down the list of potential suspects quite a bit. Several people who met these criteria were excluded as potential suspects, or at least do not appear to be guilty. Chad was not excluded. There was a gap in Chad's alibi which left him enough time to commit the homicide. It is believed that the killer took a shower after the murder. Only someone with knowledge about where the family was would have felt comfortable enough to do that. Chad not only knew that Brittany was alone in the house, he knew that it would be a few hours before the family members would return. Chad's former girlfriend said that when Chad picked her up from the high school, he was nervous, and he smelled like he had just taken a shower. She also claimed that he admitted to taking a shower. A pair of underwear matching the size that Brittany wore was found in Chad's residence, and the police could not locate Brittany's underwear at the crime scene. Velva told the police that Chad was envious of Brittany because Brittany had been allowed to stay overnight at the Stogner house, while Chad was never invited to stay there. Moving to the exculpatory factors, there were no witnesses to the murder, no video. The murder weapon was never recovered, therefore it cannot be tied to anybody, including Chad. No DNA connects Chad to the crime scene. There was a gap in Chad's alibi, but it did not leave him a lot of time to commit the homicide. Chad was not the only one who knew that Brittany was sleeping in Jeff's house. A few other people were aware of this information. They could have innocently told someone, and that person could have carried out the homicide. Another possibility is that one of the people who knew Brittany was there could have directed another person to commit the murder. Having an alibi is not a complete defense. Conspiracy is always a possibility. Brittany engaged in romantic activity with another man not long before she was murdered. This could have supplied Jeff with a motive to cause harm to her. If Brittany was prone to this type of behavior, any number of people could have had a motive. Maybe there was another lover that no one knew about. What about the statements made by Chad's former girlfriend? A former love interest is not a reliable source of information about a potential suspect. It's vexing to verify the veracity of Velva's volatile version. Also, the motive that she proposed is weak. Chad was envious because Brittany could sleep over? If his threshold for committing murder was that low, he probably would have committed many murders by then. When considering all the evidence, do I believe that Chad Carr is guilty of murder? I believe that he is guilty in reality, but I'm not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. Any number of other people could have committed this murder, and there is nothing that places Chad inside the Stogner house. Now moving to my final thoughts. The sheriff referred to the evidence against Chad in this case as overwhelming. I disagree. I think the evidence certainly points to Chad being responsible, but it is not even close to being overwhelming. Sometimes an offender can commit a crime without leaving enough evidence for a successful prosecution. It's frustrating, but trying to force the case through the courts is not the answer. Those are my thoughts on the case of Brittany McGlone. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.